This is part 4 of the Rowe Imperial vending stack assembly. A couple things have happened since the last video. I was able to now get the delivery rods to pull when inserting a quarter. So I had a bunch of issues with basically just freeing up the mechanism, and basically what I had to do was just continue to soak the mechanism into with penetrating oil. I probably did it 3 or 4 times where I would spray everything down and let it sit for overnight, and then I would come back to the mechanism and work on it, and then I would keep spraying each section until things freed up. But the major issue that I had found during troubleshooting was that when the mechanism is removed from the actual rack, there is a slide that is on the bent coin release knob on this right side. So if you look carefully, there's this slide that moves back and forth, and you'll see it moving back and forth at this time. When you have the coin mechanism removed from the mechanism, or from the coin block, it doesn't allow, it doesn't spring back the slide. When you pull this rod, it gives the quarter back, but there's a spring on the mechanism that forces this back. When that's removed, it doesn't remove it to the home position. So if you look at that right now, it's not in the home position. So this slide, when the knob is pulled out, it prevents another knob from being pulled. And so if this slide hasn't returned to the home position, which is going to be underneath this finger bracket here, then it's not going to be able to allow you to vent anything. So this variable right here took a while to figure out, not knowing anything about the mechanism, not having a manual. This was a major deal. When I discovered that this was the issue, that freed everything up on the delivery rods. So this machine here was normally a 15-cent mechanism, and it had been modified to take a quarter. And so my mechanism is a quarter. And so I started with 10 cents, thinking it was 10 cents for some reason. Then I went to 15 cents, which was a dime and a nickel. I couldn't get it to work, and then I realized that there was a plate that I had riveted over the bezel that had been 25 cents. So I went from 10 cents to 15 cents to 25 cents. And I'll show you real quickly on the mechanism. When that was in place, you'll notice that this is kind of hard to do one-handed, but this little piece right here goes in this, slot right here. And so when this is positioned and fastened to the cabinet, when this would have been pulled out, when you pull this knob, this would come out, and then it would force it back in because there's a spring on the bottom of that mechanism. So if you look at it carefully, and I'm just going to show you with my finger, it forces that back to the home position when it's when the mechanism is attached to the coin block. So if you're troubleshooting with the mechanism out, I'm going to take it off. Now, since we had sprung that back, it's in the home position. So if you were messing around with this, or this comes out a little bit, that slide will not return to the home position, which is going to lock up the mech. Only one rod can be pulled out at a time. So when the bent coin release rod is pulled, it prevents you from making another selection. It locks everything up to give you your quarter back. They wouldn't want to allow a rod to be free, because then you get free product. So long story short, if you're troubleshooting, Make sure this slide is in the home position. I keep on saying home position because I don't know what else to call it. When you're working with these old mechanisms, there's no manual. So you don't have any indication or description of what items are called or what pieces are called. So you just kind of have to come up with your own terminology to figure out what works for you. So with a quarter in the machine, this should allow it to work. So you look at each plate, each product plate. So this machine here is a 6 selection machine. So you'll see 6 pull rods that look exactly the same in size and diameter. So those are all your product rods. You'll see the rod on the very outside is missing. That's because I took it off, because you have to take this off to get it off the rack. And this is for the matches. So the first rod is for matches at 1 cent. Then you have 25 cents, 25 cents, 25 cents down the line for your 6 selections. And then the final delivery rod on this side is your bent coin release. So if you were to put a bad coin in, or you determine that you decide that you don't want to purchase something, you could pull this rod and it would politely return your change. So now that we have the quarter in its place, and we have, very important that we have this slide back in the home position, we can put this quarter in the mech. And then you'll notice that each platform that product would have sat on, when you have something on the top of this plate, this little tooth goes up and down. When this is down, it locks into this little rectangular or square hole in the back of the assembly. So when it's down, it's going to allow the rod to spin, or to be pulled freely if you have a quarter put in. When we look at each one here, there's a track for each one. So on this side, you have, it's really hard to see, and I'm not really going to be able to show you, but there is a little piece, a little tooth piece. It's really hard to see. I don't know if we'll be able to see it or not, but it goes up and down. So when that's down, it allows that to slide freely on that track. So what we have now is we have a quarter in the coin block, and then we have to have this, and we're going to cover the bottom of the mechanism next. So we're just going to show it vending now. So now that we have a quarter in the proper slot, we're going to pretend that there's something on this, put a piece of tape or something, that way you can see it. So make a piece of tape and push that down. And then now it should allow the quarter dropped, and then it should allow for the rod to go back to that position. And now we're just showing you how it works. So we'll go to the next one. And you can notice that when we manipulate, or we pull these rods out, watch the locking slides move back and forth. So you'll notice that we have these slides. It's getting caught on the bottom of the towel. But anyways, we have these slides that allow everything to come out freely from the mechanism. So, and right now I must have just got it stuck messing around with it. So let's see if we can get this guy to return. So anyways, it's actually fine that it's actually out right now, because that's going to show you how it works. So basically there's this, and you can see it going back to the closed position, but the reason that rod is not going back is because this This arm is actually fastened with a large spring to the frame of the mechanism. And so that spring, when it goes all the way, pulls out, it recoils the rod back. So if we look at the bottom of the mechanism real carefully, these slides on each delivery rod have to be free and moving. So when I soaked the mechanism in the PB blaster, the problem that I was really having was that this slide was not moving freely back and forth. So these were all stuck. And if these are stuck, it doesn't give it enough space, because basically what's going on is that when that slider gets pushed to one side, it allows enough room for the rod to be pulled out. And so really the rest of the mechanism is pretty simple. You have this roller that, so when you pull the rod, it rolls this all the way down, and then, like I had mentioned, it attaches with a spring on the arm to force it back. So you pull it, and the roller comes down, and then the spring forces it back. The rest of the mechanism is pretty self-explanatory. It was mainly the issue was in my opinion, it was very, very rusty, and it was not free. All these slides were basically, they weren't working. They weren't moving at all. So with a lot of patience and some discussion with some people that had them, I was able to kind of work through the issues that I had. So the major thing I would do would be to make sure that all these are moving freely. They should move, no problem. If they're not moving, you need to soak them in penetrating oil and get them moving. The other variable that I wasn't really aware of is when you have the mechanism removed, that lock slide. That slide has to be returned to the home position. How I discovered that was I had to basically just narrow down, where I thought the problem would be. And so as I moved each rod back and forth, my issue was always kind of coming back to this area right here in the block. And as you put coins through here, there wasn't really anything that was happening. And then these slots here were for when it was originally a dime or a nickel. So the only thing that was left was this little rod here. And so I kept on thinking to myself that, let me just make sure that the rod is all the way closed. That way, it will allow enough space for another rod to be pulled. And then when I fasten this back to the rack and I put the mech in, it forced this to go back. And when I pulled the mech off the frame, I noticed that this slide had pushed in which I've been calling the home position below this. I think these two pieces here are the guides. So when a dime would have gone in there, it would have, it's like a feeler, I guess is what it would have been described as. So when the dime drops in there, it knows that there's a dime there, and then it knows that there's a nickel there. So it feels the two coins that need to go in that slot. So then you could make a selection, and those would drop down into the coin box. The only other situation I have right now is that it works on a quarter, but it's still a free vend situation. So I can put a quarter in, and it works and drops into the coin box. But I can pull another selection after I've completed the vend cycle without a coin. And so right now, I don't know what is causing that. I believe these two feelers, there's generally a washer below this fastener right here, and it has two springs that go to these two eyelets on both the feelers. So there's I'm going to call it a left feeler and a right feeler. There's two different feelers. They're stacked on top of each other. I would have thought that those would have been just for the 10 cents and the 15-cent coins. Right now, it does not vend on 10 and 15 cents. It does not work. It only works on a quarter. And so I need to figure out what component would need to lock up to require a coin after each vend. And I don't know what that is going to be right now. I can't think of any other thing that needs to happen for it to require a coin. Right now, it's working on free play. The only other consideration that I had thought was that once I bolt this back to on the frame of the mechanism, that when I attach my delivery rod with the cotter pin to the vending stack, that would require each vend to take a quarter. But essentially, all this bracket is for is to move the rod back and forth. I did put this mechanism back on the rack and set it up in the configuration that it would have been, found in the machine. So that's the only other thing that I have to sort through. But again, the main takeaways were to make sure that all these slides are free and not obstructed, and they're moving back and forth. And you can notice they have to move. And this one right here just got stuck. It gets stuck real easy. And I'll unfree it when I finish the video here. But they get stuck real easy. So you want to make sure that this is all free. It's not obstructed. And then on the back here, you have this, and here's another piece here is that there is this little paper clip spring right here, and that's why it's stuck right now. And so it doesn't take much for this mechanism to lock up. And so you have to make sure that all these slides and rollers and everything is free, and then you can start working the rods back and forth. In order to remove the rods, the slide actually passes through each delivery rod slot, and so you'll have to remove the cotter pin on this post right here, and then on this post right here, and then you'll be able to take the roller out, and then you'll have to remove this spring here with this screwdriver here, or a screw. Take this off, and then you'll be able to slide your slide out. It's going to come out on, looks like it's going to come out on the mechanism side, so that slide is probably going to come out on this side here. It's actually right here. I think it's going to be right here. So you have this piece right here is going to come out this side. I don't think it can go out the other side. There's not really an opening. So if you go to the other side, you can see that there's no opening on this side for the slide. You can tell that this just casted. So next video will probably be it working with a quarter. Then after the quarter has been put in, it should lock up and require another quarter. And then we're going to try to get the mechanism down to just the casting part. And then we're going to take this piece, which I'm calling the casting, is just the mold. And then we're going to actually take this and we're going to polish this up with a wire wheel and try to protect it with a clear coat. And then we're going to take all these pieces off here and polish these, and then we'll send the knobs out for plating. And then I believe that these platforms are actually made of pot metal, so we'll have to carefully hand polish these along with these these teeth on here, they'll have to be cleaned individually. I might sand those and then spray them with a light gray and then clear them. I'm not too concerned. I don't think that will cause any obstructions as long as I don't put too much paint on there. I could try to polish them with my wire wheel, but I don't want to break any of them. So yeah, so that's part 4. So if you have any questions, you can leave a comment. Thanks.